So our second panel for today is also very relevant. The panelists are going to discuss the Hong Kong and ASEAN microeconomic outlook. Thank you for the microphone. US-China trade relations and how this has impacted both the commercial and the private jet aviation industry. Chairing this panel is Jonathan Silver, a partner at Maples.
Can I ask the other panelists to come up, and then we'll start. Thanks. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this panel session. It's the economy. In this panel, we'll discuss the Hong Kong and Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN macroeconomic outlook, the US-China regional trade outlook, as well as the private wealth outlook in a context where more pressure is forecast to hit the commercial and private aviation industries. Thanks to Paul and Avstonish for inviting me to chair what I'm sure you all agree will be a fascinating panel discussion on the economy. My name is Jonathan Silver, and I'm a partner at Maples Group, based in Hong Kong. Together with James Kinsley, who I'm sure many of you will know, who's based in Singapore, so can't be here today, we run the asset finance team at Maples Group in Asia. Just a very quick word on the Maples Group, just 2 lines before I begin. We're a global service provider offering legal services through our international law firm, Maples & Calder, on the laws of the British Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands, Ireland, Jersey, Luxembourg, and the Marshall Islands, where I'm qualified as well. Currently, we have over 2,000 lawyers and professionals based in 18 offices located in the Americas, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. So, as we're all acutely aware, the coronavirus pandemic has resulted in severe distress across the aviation industry. Airlines are capital-intensive margin businesses and have had to take drastic steps to reduce cash burn, and many now rely on government support in the form of subsidies, loans, and guarantees. Turning to the stats for a moment, the International Air Transport Association, the IATA, has revised its 2021 outlook 3 times since the start of the pandemic. The last forecast, published in late November, predicted an industry net loss of $118 billion in 2020 and a further loss of $38 billion in 2021. Cash outflows for the second to the fourth quarter 2020 were estimated at $125 billion, with potentially another $45 billion of cash burn over the next 3 quarters of 2020 before turning marginally positive in the last quarter of 2021. However, the level of airline failures in 2020 did not reach a new record high. The extent of government support, estimated to be at least $180 billion to date, has played a major role in saving a number of weak legacy carriers from collapse. But in doing so has created a long-term unleveling of the playing field, which perhaps we'll talk about a little today. From an offshore lawyer's perspective, where we see the industry, we're seeing that the syndicated loan markets have dramatically changed. Fewer lenders, higher interest rates, lower LTVs, and shorter tenures. Unsecured capital markets issuances are booming for government-backed or high-grade lessors and airlines. ABS issuances are down. Non-bank funding, private equity funding, has increased, but mostly in North America. Innovative financings have come to the fore, such as United and Delta loyalty securitizations. Generally speaking, governments in the US and Europe have responded more quickly than in Asia on the aviation support front, if perhaps not on the COVID public health front. So with me today on the panel, we have Anthony Snellman, please correct me if that's the right pronunciation of the surname, of Ergo, Thomas Kaplan, ASEAN by Cirium, and Gary Ng of Natixis. Just a very quick intro to the panelists. Anthony is the Chief Risk Officer and Head of Asia and Middle East at Aircraft Ergo Capital, based in Hong Kong. Prior to joining Ergo in February 2019, Anthony spent 17 years at GE Capital Aviation Services in a range of risk and sales management roles covering fixed and rotary aircraft. Thomas is an ISTAT certified appraiser based in ASEAN by Cirium's Hong Kong office, where he focuses on the commercial aviation market, advising clients on asset values and business decisions. He began his career in the aviation industry in 2005. Gary joined Natixis as the economist for Asia-Pacific region in 2015, and prior to Natixis, he was an analyst covering economic and sectoral trends at Bloomberg. And I'll ask each one of you, if you'd like, just to give a short presentation on your firm, your bank, when you start. Should we then just get into the questions? Anthony, first, if I may. Can I ask you, notwithstanding the obvious differences and challenges facing the US and China and Asia-China relations, is there more that draws us together than apart?
Yep, I'm on. Just quickly, in terms of Ergo Capital, we're a fixed-wing aircraft lessor. We've been around 21 years, and we have a diverse portfolio globally of narrow-body, wide-body, and turboprop aircraft on lease from the likes of Singapore Airlines down to small carriers in Africa. In relation to the question, I think that what COVID has shown us is that the world is even more closely aligned, and countries, regardless of the way they manage themselves or their political system, entirely entwined globally. Until we all get out of COVID, none of us is out of COVID, and I think we're seeing this in relation to the Indian variant right now. Until everybody has had the vaccine, until our economies have been able to recover and we can get back to business, the whole world is limited in terms of our ability to exit by the weakest link. So events like this, the focusing on COVID testing is absolutely critical, and vaccinations. We're excited about the opportunities this creates globally, because there is a real opportunity for us to work together and recognize how important our common future is. That's on the COVID side. Certainly economically, we just can't go back to where we were a few hundred years ago, where environments and economies were distinct and separate. China's success is driven by the desire of consumers globally to buy their products. The US economies and consumers, their success is going to be driven about the ability to get the products they want at the right price from around the world. So COVID has been a disastrous phenomena. We're fortunate that it's happened in an environment where we've got such great technology and scientific resources to have been able to come up with a vaccine so quickly. We need to get that out, and then we need to get back to an environment where we can trade together, do business, respect each other, and progress forward.
Yeah, totally agree. Thank you very much. Thomas, so yeah, if you just give a short intro on your firm, and then if I can ask you to speak about commercial aircraft values, lease rates, and how they've been affected by the pandemic.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I'm from ASEAN by Cirium. Cirium is a one-stop shop for aviation data analytics, news, and advisory. And we use a lot of our data for understanding what's happening with aircraft values. So yes, there's been a lot of resilience in the face of adversity, but aircraft values definitely have been affected during this pandemic. It was alluded to before, the number of aircraft in storage, about 30%. Yeah, we have 28% of the commercial jet fleet right now parked, which represents, the largest amount, over 6,000 aircraft. At the beginning of the pandemic, 60% of the fleet, over 60% of the fleet was parked, which was absolutely unprecedented. And if you just look at other downturns before, you never had over 10% of the commercial jet fleet parked like this. So, of course, having this oversupply, you're going to have an impact to aircraft values and lease rates. And what we've seen overall is airlines have to make a decision. Which aircraft are they going to park? They're going to keep flying some aircraft and they're going to park others. The ones that keep flying are the most efficient, the newest aircraft types, the ones that will cost them the less to operate. Therefore, the older aircraft, less efficient, these are the ones that are put aside, and these are the ones that we've seen the largest values declines. So even with popular narrow bodies like A320, CEOs, 737-800s, we've seen declines since the beginning of the pandemic on a constant age basis, so not including depreciation, around 30% on average. It's quite significant. Of course, they were coming from a bit of a higher place pre-pandemic, but even they were affected. Although the A320neos, 737 MAXs, declines were a lot less, less than 10%. So values are generally holding on those new ends. And then on the wide-body side, it is more difficult. We have, on the long-haul traffic is down by 75%. So that's absolutely affecting the desire for wide bodies. There are also larger aircraft, more expensive to operate. So wide-body values have also come down quite a lot. We've seen especially large declines in the very largest wide bodies, like the A380 and 777-300ER, declines even recently of over 50%. These are basically out of production, or nearly out of production aircraft, and there's just too much supply on the market right now. So some asset types are really suffering right now, but as demand comes up, there's a hope for recovery.
Okay, thank you. And then Gary. So Gary, if you just say a word or two about the bank, and then if I can ask you, how quickly will the global economy and Asia rebound in 2021 and onwards, in your view? And coupled with that, what are the main challenges for Asia for it to be out of the woods?
Sure. Thank you, Jonathan. So basically, let me just give a brief introduction for Natixis. So Natixis is a corporate investment and financial services arm of the group BPCE, which is the second largest banking group in France by the number of branches. So we provide a range of services which could range from financial sponsors, LBOs, to probably a bit more also daily financial needs such as FX, basically hedging, as well as the credit solution. So in terms of the question really about the economy, I think it is indeed quite an uncertain question. And I think the answers are twofold. So first is that the good news is, of course, basically we start to see some light from the end of the tunnel, even though the tunnel has been quite long for most of us. However, the bad news is also, I think the situation about the coronavirus is still quite volatile. So basically, I think what we know so far is that, yes, things are getting basically better versus last year. However, what is uncertain is really about the path and the speed of the recovery. So in 2021, I think definitely geopolitics will be one of the key concerns. However, the short-term growth will actually be driven from the rebound from the basically economic activities that is like affected by the basically coronavirus. So the key driver will really be from the US and China, but for different reasons. For the US, we have seen trillions and trillions of fiscal stimulus that has been poured in the economy. However, for China, it's really about this first in, first out story. And for ASEAN, I think the pictures is a bit two-folded. We see a better performance basically from Singapore, from Indonesia, but however, there's also basically severe pressure if we look at Thailand, which is basically a very tourism-based dependent economy. And talking about Hong Kong, since we are all here, right? So it's a bit a mix of the two, because if we look at the financial sector, it has done actually quite well even last year amid the pandemic, and export has basically has been quite well as well, as we have seen for the aircraft industry. Even though the passenger numbers have collapsed, but the cargo actually demand has been rather resilient, driven by semiconductor or basically other demand for goods. However, the other side of the story is also we have seen the sectors that very dependent on tourism or people movement has been basically taken a very big hit, such as accommodation, insurance, and of course airlines as well, because basically it's very hard to travel. So, so basically I think to conclude this part, one of the key game changer that I see basically upcoming in this year is really about this EU and the US arrangement on whether there is actually a travel bubble, which actually exempt people from being basically quarantined with the vaccine record. So I do think this will be a major boost for the economy because it is a very great example. For the world, especially in Asia, we have seen the vaccination rate hasn't been really that great.
Okay, thank you very much. We've not got a huge amount of time left. So one of our panelists who unfortunately couldn't make it today, she raised quite a good question. I thought maybe if you can just give 30 seconds, each one of you, to this. With China being first in, first out of the COVID crisis, what are the lessons, implications to the economic recovery path for the rest of Asia and the world and the aviation sector in general? Anthony, do you want to start?
Okay, I'm not sure that China first in, first out actually is going to be a great signpost for the rest of the world. I think the way China operates is a little unique. Its ability to control the economy and the movement of people so effectively and to have clamped down so quickly. We've seen other parts of the world try that or fail to do that and end up with a range of different success outcomes. So I think that, interestingly, Europe was very late in terms of getting borders up, late in terms of dealing with the COVID, as was the US. Yet their effectiveness in getting vaccines out will probably get them out of the troubles quicker than would have been the case otherwise. In parts of Southeast Asia and Asia generally, where you have possibly a more Chinese approach to trying to control COVID, as a result of the effective control of COVID, you've got vaccination hesitancy and a failure to people to vaccinate. So it could be, in fact, that those economies that did so badly in the early days are so rightly scared of COVID that they'll put in place some measures to provide a more sustainable exit than maybe those economies around here where we're just not vaccinating enough.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thomas.
Yeah, we're really waiting for the borders to open up, basically, to help the wide-body side. The China domestic market is already up in terms of capacity over pre-COVID levels. They're at over 20% over 2019 levels, which is very strong, and traffic is just about to get there as well. But that's helping their domestic market, but that's good for narrow bodies. But still, you need a lot more. You need the whole picture to open up. You need the borders to open up in order to get aviation back to where it was. Yeah. And that's going to depend on the vaccination issues.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And lastly, Gary, just
sure. So I think we can look at it from two angles. First is that I think for China, of course, it has been talking for a long time for a dual circulation model. And then even within the virus containment, we have seen very tough measures in terms of lockdown, which maybe not like every countries in the world can actually copy. But however, I think if we look further into the airline industry, is that even though there is a rather uninterrupted domestic market for a lot of airlines because of this missing international connection. Basically, it could most of the the large four airlines may still run into a profit deficit in 2021 because of the missing of the international route. So I think it really means that if we are to get out of the wood of the from the coronavirus, it really need a global effort in terms of rebuilding this type of connection, of which especially a vaccine will be one of the key driving force in order for us to build that.
Right, okay. Thank you very much. So to the panel, thank you very much for taking part today. And Danielle.